Welcome to the Ambitious Coach Podcast. This is a place where driven, determined coaches learn how to get off the business growth struggle bus and learn how to build a wildly profitable online coaching business. I'm your host, Allison Henderson, corporate dropout to six-figure social media business coach. I'm going to show you how I've been able to create the business of my dreams organically, all through utilizing my social media platforms. So pull up a seat, take some notes, and get ready to see your life and bank account transform. Hello, and welcome back to the Ambitious Coach Podcast. In this episode, I brought back one of my favorite people, the founder of Center for Pediatric Sleep Management and the owner of Snooze Fest, Jayne Havens. If you have been in the sleep consulting world or a part of the birth worker community, you've probably heard of Jayne and her work inside of CPSM. Over the past decade, she has truly made a name for herself and has helped so many women start businesses, make money from home, and really lead by example on how you can have that flexibility and freedom to be home with your family and really make an impact in the world. Her certification program for sleep consultants is one of the top in the world. I'm lucky to have her as a guest and to know her. You're going to truly love this episode where she talks about the importance of having a community and what she does to continue to nurture her audience and get engagement from her groups. I hope you enjoyed this interview with Jayne just as much as I did, and I'll see you again next week. Bye. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the podcast. I'm welcoming back a podcast guest. I have Jayne Havens. Welcome, Jayne.
Thank you so much for having me. I always love being on your show, so I really appreciate you welcoming me back.
Yay. Well, I always like to start with just sharing with the audience who you are, what you're all about, and a little bit more of your background and how you got started.
Sure. I always love sharing my story, so happy to do that. I am a mom. I have two kids. They're currently 12 and 8, and I live with my family, my husband, my two kids in Baltimore, Maryland. I got started in sleep consulting because I figured out sleep for my own kids when they were babies. My son, who was born 12 years ago, was a really great sleeper out of the gate, and I thought I was the best mom ever. I thought I had it all figured out. And then he hit that classic 4-month sleep regression that so many babies experience. And as a first-time mom, I was beside myself. I had no idea what was going on. My little baby, who had been previously sleeping, 10, 11, 12 hours at a time, was waking up every single hour. And I had no idea what to do with myself or why that was happening. And he just needed like a passy plugged back in. But when you're doing that every hour for 12 hours in the middle of the night, it's brutal. And so this was before, Facebook groups. This was before the abundance of information that's now everywhere on the internet. So I literally found myself sitting on the floor of Barnes and Noble, like flipping through books, trying to figure out why he wasn't sleeping. Long story short, I realized that I needed to sleep train him. I needed to teach him how to fall asleep and back to sleep independently. And that's what we did. We implemented a variation of the Ferber method, and he cried for about 27 minutes and I cried for like 27 minutes. And he slept through the night. And then every night after that, it got easier. And within like 3 or 4 nights, he was back to doing what he was doing before. And it was really empowering and magical. And my husband and I were just so overwhelmed. When you go from total sleep deprivation to being back at the top of the mountain, it's a really good feeling. And also like my son was happier too. Like his temperament was better, and we got him into like a groove, a schedule, and it was just really wonderful for our entire family. Fast forward 4 years later, my daughter was born. I was still home. I was a stay-at-home mom at the time, and I worked on sleep with her from a very early age. I knew so much more the second time going around. And she was a beautiful sleeper, but she was a really cranky baby. Like her temperament was just miserable, if I'm being completely transparent. And I was sort of like burnt out from stay-at-home mom life. She was driving me nuts because she was always crying. And I just felt like I needed to get a job. I was like, I got to get out of here. This is really hard. And I didn't feel like I could leave them. Like as much as I wanted to go back to work, I didn't feel like I didn't want to put them in daycare. I felt overwhelmed with the idea of hiring a nanny or having a professional in my home. And so I was trying to think of like what I could do from home, still be the primary caregiver for my kids and earn some money and also just like use my brain again. And I kept coming back to sleep consulting because I was always sort of really good at it. I was good at getting my own kids to sleep. I had been helping friends informally and friends of friends for years. I was sort of that go-to person that people would reach out to when their kids were not sleeping well. And I would just text with them or get on a quick call and give them a rundown of what to do. And I'd help them get their kids sleeping. And so I decided to get certified. And what was intended to be just like a side hustle or a passion project while caring for my two kids at home, it really turned into a very legitimate business. I don't like to call it a full-time business because it's so much more flexible than that, but a full-time income very, very quickly. And not too long after that, I decided to create my own certification program. And the reason I decided to create my own certification program is because I really felt like I could provide students, up and coming sleep consultants, a really strong experience with regard to business building, entrepreneurship, and also support. I'm really big on community and support, and I wanted people who are entering the field to feel supported and to feel like they had a community to lean on. And really, I wanted to give them the tools to show them how to grow a successful business, because I think prior to CPSM, that wasn't really being taught. The courses were teaching the logistics of growing a business, go get a business bank account, form an LLC, maybe set up an Instagram account. Like the logistics were outlined, but programs weren't really teaching business building. They weren't teaching sales, marketing, business growth strategy, mindset work. I know mindset work's your favorite. And these were all of the things that I knew to be so important. And it was sort of like the missing link. It was what I happened to be really passionate about and really good at. So when I created CPSM, it was with the idea to provide up and coming sleep consultants with the tools to not only be good sleep coaches, but to be successful entrepreneurs. And I guess that's where we are today.
Did you always have like an entrepreneur spirit, like many years ago before all this happened? Like, were you always like, oh, I can make money doing this or I can do that?
Well, not really. But what I will say is that I was raised by an entrepreneur. My dad is entrepreneurial. Both my brothers, I have two brothers. One is in business for himself. The other is a lawyer, but both are very entrepreneurial. And so I think to some degree, it was sort of pumping through my veins a little bit. And prior to having kids, I worked in catering sales. I was an event planner. And while I didn't own my own business, I ran my catering practice, if you want to call it that. It was sort of like my own mini business because I had to find my own clients. I had to service my own events. And yes, I had support systems in place to make that happen for me and with me. But I really was running my own show. I worked for a company that had many salespeople. I was in sales, and we all ran our events differently. We all did our own thing and we did it our own way and we put our own spins on things. And so I think to some degree, I don't know that I always was entrepreneurial, but I think it was inside of me and I just needed the opportunity for it to come out.
Yeah. I think many women hide or avoid that piece of them that's really calling them to go down this path. Some know from a very young age that they have that entrepreneur spirit inside of them, and some don't. Or maybe now they're just starting to think like, yeah, this whole like 9 to 5 lifestyle for myself just isn't cutting it anymore. I don't want this. And I do feel I knew from a young age, and this was like right after college, realistically, even with my quote unquote like real job, my first real job, I knew this whole 9 to 5 thing just wasn't for me. I know it's not easy just taking that risk to go all in on your business, especially if you haven't had anyone in your life do this before. The big reason why I wanted you to be on my podcast today is because like you have a massive community. And I know, and you know, to start having that big, huge success for yourself, or if you want to have 5 clients, 10 clients, 20 clients, like having a community, a pool of people to know who you are and what you're all about is really important. And you are one of the in my opinion, you have a community that a lot of people really desire. And I even know I've worked with some of your students inside CPSM, and they're like, I want a community like Jayne's. And so I'm always like, you know what? I need to have her on my podcast and have her explain, how did this happen? Like having this like almost like a cult following of people inside these Facebook groups of yours, and they ask questions and they're always looking for feedback, and they just love you. They love you as a person and as their mentor.
Yeah. So I think I'm a connector at heart. I love making connections between people that I know. I've been known to connect people in my business world. I know I've connected you with other people that I know from online, whatever. In my personal life, same thing. When I have two friends that I think might get along or might enjoy each other in some capacity, I always make sure to make the connection. I think it's just a part of my personality, part of my spirit is just to connect people. And then I also understand the value of support. I think that in this like digital age, life can be more lonely. People are more to themselves. And that doesn't mean that we as people don't need human connection. And, when I think about growing a business, one thing that comes to mind is sales, right? Like you have to be able to sell yourself to be successful in business. But I've always thought of sales as more serving than selling. And when you show up to serve people and help people, the sales will come. And, if I take that back to my catering days, it literally was serving. Like, back in event planning, I was serving them a menu, beautiful flowers, lighting, I was literally serving them their options, but I was selling them their options, right?
You created an experience for them,
Exactly. And I think that, and the word experience, okay, so I'm going to tell you a story. I worked for two catering companies. This is like pre-kids, pre-sleep consulting. My first job out of college, I worked for like a mediocre company on Capitol Hill. And then I went to work for like a top dog catering company in Washington, D.C. And it was like my first or second day on the job. And we were all sitting around this conference table for a weekly meeting that this company held. And one of the owners asked the question in the meeting, what makes occasions, that's the name of the company, what makes occasions special? Why do people choose us? And literally, everybody was dead silent around the table. And I'd literally been there for like 2 days. And I raised my hand. I'd been there, I think like 1 or 2 days. I raised my hand and I was like, I think it's probably the experience. And he was like, yeah, okay, thanks. You've been here 2 days and you already know that it's literally the experience that we offer from beginning to end. It's the journey. It's the service. It's the way that we make our clients feel. Right. And I've just always understood that in order to grow something worthwhile, you have to give a positive experience. And so I don't know, I'm all about that. Maybe it's because I literally came from the service industry. That's how I approach both my consulting business and Center for Pediatric Sleep Management. And it's sort of the underlying, these are the values that I'm instilling inside of the people who I train, because I want them to go out and offer an experience of their own. And it doesn't need to look like the experience that I offer. It can be an entirely different experience, but they need to create that experience for themselves and articulate that value to the families that they serve.
I love how you explain that. I think a lot of people miss that piece when they're building a business. It's like, no, I have this offer and I'm just selling this package or this offer. But I'm like, but it is more than that. Like it's you making that mom or that person just feel so seen, heard, and understood, right? Like making her feel at ease and at peace or whatever that is. Like, and everyone looks at it is going to be different. But I always know when I get somebody in my coaching container, like I want them to know like this is the right place and you made the right decision. And, you have a person that understands exactly what you're going through right now and is going to help you every step of the way and having a step-by-step or whatever that is. So,
yeah.
It's such
and when you're coming up in the market, when you're a brand new sleep consultant, let's say, it's very easy to try and model your business off of somebody else's. And that's fine. Most people who go through my program, they model their business off of my business model. And that's to be expected because I'm teaching them everything I know. And, if they want to model their experience off of my experience that I offer, totally understandable. I really do believe though that when you create your own experience and you figure out a way to truly show up authentically as yourself, that's when you start to shine. And, I've had some veteran sleep consultants come to me, people who have been trained by my program, and they're upset because they see that somebody else has copied them or somebody's using their language or whatever. And I understand that's hurtful. I've had that happen to me several times in my business. But what I always tell them is like, nobody's going to be you. Like they can use your words, they can use even similar graphics, they can use similar colors. Nobody's going to be you. And when somebody tries to be you, they just, falls flat. Right. So, showing up authentically, giving people an experience and having the confidence to do it your own way, I think is the key.
Yeah. No, you're right. Same here. I've had people be like, oh, they're copying this and this. I'm like, it's okay. Like everyone's going to sound a little similar, but yeah, they're not you. So keep coming on, have your bright smiling face, share some value, tell people where they can buy your things. And that to me is like, that's sometimes just selling 101. Just be yourself and, becoming authentic or getting to that point of being like, that could take some time. So if you're modeling somebody's business model right now or their packages or whatever, over time, I'd be like, okay, I've had like 10 clients. I'd actually like to do it this way, or I like to be able to, have this sort of call. Maybe it's not last. Maybe I do that like one of my first few calls with them or whatever. Like you can switch things up a little bit based off of that's how you create your own methodology in a sense, and why somebody's going to come to you because you might be different from that other sleep consultant they hired, or different from how so and so has their course laid out or whatever. So yeah, don't be afraid to do things your way and have like your own unique experience that nobody else offers.
Totally.
So okay, let's go back into this your community. So I know that you do Facebook. How are you feeling about Facebook? I guess right now, let's just be like real about it.
I'm feeling good about Facebook.
Okay,
I know Instagram is your thing.
It is, but also Instagram has its own flaws right now. So I'm always like, oh, geez.
Yeah. So I always tell my grads that it doesn't matter where you're building your business. It doesn't matter where you're showing up. You just have to show up consistently and authentically. So sure, does Facebook get glitchy sometimes? Does it not work the way you want it to sometimes? Like all of those things are true, right? Like you don't want to be 100% a slave to any one platform. But what I will say is that people are coming to Facebook to have conversations and connect. And that's why I like it. I think sometimes with Instagram or with TikTok, people are just sometimes scrolling. They're just looking to watch and listen. They're not necessarily there to engage. That doesn't mean that you can't engage. You absolutely can. But I think people are showing up there to just scroll and watch. And what I like about Facebook is I do feel like people are showing up to have conversations and to learn from one another. And so that's why I like it. I think also I was just, with my age, like I literally was in college when Facebook started. Yeah. I was an early adopter. I went to college in Boston. So after like Harvard and MIT or whatever was the second school, BU was like a very, very early school to get access to Facebook. So it's just like a part of, when I go into my computer, Facebook's the first place I go just because, I don't know, it's habit. So I'm just very comfortable there. No platform is perfect, but I think that when you build a community that, again, like sees value in what you're talking about and the value that you share, then like people keep coming back to learn more from you. And so that's what I'm doing. I also communicate with other people, like, and not other people, but I also communicate with my audience in other ways. I have an email list, it's not just Facebook, but I'm not against Facebook. I'm cool with it.
Well, I mean, clearly you've built I would say massive empire in a sense, like because of Facebook, which I think you're right. I think Instagram, to be honest, is known for its community. Like they are the OG of groups, right? Like, and that's where I think our age group, once again, I also was the same thing as you. It was like I was in
You said
college.
Instagram, but did you mean
Oh,
Facebook?
sorry, I meant Facebook. Yes, sorry, I meant Facebook, everybody. I had to have a .edu like in order to sign up at that time,
Right.
which yeah, like it's definitely like if you want to have a community, like that is the first platform that you think of is Facebook, right? Yeah, now we have a lot of other things, but I think for our age group, I mean, if you are marketing to that mom who's what 30 between 30 and 40, she's on Facebook or she at least has a Facebook account. That isn't weird for her. And I think TikTok or, we now have school, there's like all these other, community platforms or mighty networks. Like they might not even know what that is, And so we at least know if you're going to try to find a community, you're probably going to start on Facebook.
Yeah. Yeah. But again, like, I don't think it's really so much about where the community is. It's just that you're showing up inside of your community regularly and
Yeah.
legitimately providing value and support. I think
Yeah.
that that's really what it's all about. I am committed to showing up inside of my Facebook group 5 days a week, Monday through Friday. I show up every single day. And so people expect to see something from me.
Yeah.
And I think that cadence is really helpful because, Facebook, I think it's the same as Instagram. Like if you're not regularly active on the platform, then you sort of lose momentum. But that's the same as connecting in real life, right? Like,
Yeah.
again, it's not about the platform. Like if you're not actively engaging with people in real life to grow your business, then you're going to lose momentum. It's the same thing.
Yeah, you definitely, that's a huge, huge point I think everybody needs to remember is like, it still takes effort, daily effort, if you want to still connect with a person, whether it be in a DM, like an actual one-on-one conversation, or I just want to show you that I'm visible, that I'm here to help. And so, yeah, I think that that's definitely something that we all need to keep in mind is like, it doesn't really matter what the platform is. It's still, you have to be somewhere. It just has to be somewhere. I know you have a Facebook group for your actual students that have paid for your program, and then you also have like a kind of like I'm nurturing you to become a sleep consultant. So kind of share how that process. It's like we call it in the business world like a funnel in a sense. How did you like I guess in your mind go? Okay, I probably need like a different type of community if I'm going to get people into my certification program.
Yeah. So when I said that I show up five times a week, Monday through Friday, I was referring to showing up inside of my Becoming a Sleep Consultant Facebook group, which is for people who are interested in becoming a sleep consultant who are not yet actually sleep consultants. My process there is when I come across anybody, whether it's in another Facebook group, whether it's on another social media platform, or if it's in real life or back and forth email, whatever that looks like. If it's somebody who's interested in exploring the field, I invite them into that Facebook group and I tag them in a welcome message so that they can learn a little bit about me and about what becoming a sleep consultant looks like and what CPSM is like. And, I basically give them a rundown. And then I also try to connect with them one-to-one in DMs because I really truly believe that making actual connections is better than just inviting people into a Facebook group. Mm-hmm. And from there, it's just, again, like providing value and being present and showing that I'm there to serve and support. And, I have almost 6,000 people inside of that Facebook group. So obviously not everybody who's in the Facebook group is becoming a sleep consultant, but the community is growing, which is amazing. And then eventually, if they decide to become a sleep consultant and they enroll in Center for Pediatric Sleep Management, they get added to my Facebook group that's for CPSM students and grads. And really, this is where the magic happens. This is where like true community is built. And I'm very active in that Facebook group. I'm answering questions all day long, every single day. I share situations that come up in my own business with my own clients that I'm serving. If I learn something new about like a new platform to use or a new business tool, I'm always sharing everything that I know with my students and grads. And then I really just try to foster an environment of collaboration and community and support so that everybody feels like they're there to help one another. Technically, kind of, they're all competitors a little bit, but I truly believe that there's enough business to go around and we're all stronger together. And the way that we show up when we present ourselves as sleep consultants to the larger community of moms or families, the way that we show up is so important. So if we're all better, that's better for all of us, right? Like when somebody says in a Facebook group, I hired a sleep consultant and that changed our lives. I don't care what sleep consultant that was. I don't care if it's a CPSM grad or somebody from another program. That just makes me so happy because it's good for business, right? Like the more people that are better served by sleep consultants, the more families will be inclined to use this type of service. So we all have to lift each other up. We all have to be the best that we possibly can be so that we have a good reputation as a whole.
I love that. You're so right.
It's true.
I think some people go into those, and it's kind of like that one. It's like that quote that's like, we fix the girls. What is it? Like, fix your girls' tiara or something. Like, we're all here to. I forget what that quote is, but you know what I'm talking about. It's like it is. It's a community, and like what I love too is like you're helping a bunch of moms, a bunch of women start businesses. So like they're all experiencing relatively similar things in their life. So it's like, yes, you're getting the educational piece, but also like you're also here to like get your soul nourished by having a community of people that get exactly what you're going through right now, and not have it be a competitor thing. Like it's like, I don't know, I guess I never get that vibe at all from other sleep consultants of like, oh, she's stealing my clients or something. It's like, no, we're not doing that. Like there's literally millions of moms that are having multiple children. Like there's enough for all of you. And I think once you get that mentality or have that mentality of like, it's not a saturated market. There's not people, you're not going to be fighting people off for clients. They're not like putting a spreadsheet up of like 10 sleep consultants and trying to pick from, it's like, that's not happening. Like there's enough people for everybody.
For sure. And what I will say is that like inside of communities, I do think sometimes chatter gets loud about like you can feel like maybe there's a lot of sleep consultants. For example, if you go into a Facebook group and let's say I live in Baltimore. So let's say I go into like a Baltimore moms Facebook group and I ask for recommendations for a photographer. Literally, there will be 150 recommendations.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that you can't be a successful photographer. It just means like there's a lot of photographers and there's a lot of people that need their pictures taken. Like it's fine, right? And if you were to, and yes, that could be overwhelming if you start to think like, what if I want to become a photographer, but there's already so many photographers? That's a limiting belief that you need to take care of in your own brain, because if you didn't ask it in a Facebook group, but instead you asked your closest friends and you said, hey, Mandy, do you have a photographer that you use for family photos every year? Mandy would give you one name, right? Like, oh, we've used so-and-so, or maybe we go back and forth between these two. You should talk to them. They're both great, right? So if you can make connections with actual people to build your business, that's how you really grow, because you don't need to be a name amongst 150 names in a Facebook group. You can be the name that one person shares with one other person that shares with one other person. And that is so valuable. So I think a lot of the time, sleep consultants and parent coaches, people who are in like service-based businesses that support families, sometimes get overwhelmed with all the information and the names that are shared in communities. But if you really sort of like think about smaller communities, like ask your college roommates or ask right? Like I have a group chat with my 4 best friends from college. If I ask them a question, I'm only going to get like 3 answers, not 150, right? So really like making building relationships, which leads to like smaller communities. You don't need to have this massive community to be successful. Yeah. You need to build your own small community and then do a good job. And when you serve clients well and they love your work, then they'll share your name with friends and that becomes your community. It doesn't need to be like an Insta famous community or a Facebook famous community. It can just be like real people who know your name and recommend you.
Yeah. Yeah. I think there's that huge misconception that you need like thousands of followers or, the massive Facebook group to actually make the money you want to make because it's just not true. It's nice to have. Don't get me wrong. The more people that know you exist, the more money you will naturally make. And that's great for you. But like, yeah, you can do a lot with 100 people. A lot like, you can do a lot with 200 people. It's like, it doesn't have to be this massive, massive following that people automatically assume like, oh, I need to build this first then I can sell. I'm like, no, you're still going to sell to the first 100 people. Like you will still find your first clients there. And then you
For
can keep
sure.
growing and then you can keep growing. But it doesn't necessarily have to be your main focus of like, I got to do this first, then I can start selling and making more money.
Absolutely.
What are some other things that you want to talk about today?
I don't know. Way to put me on the spot.
I know. What's
You
on
really
your
have me.
heart? Like that's always my big thing. Is like my guests, I always want to like, what's happening in your world that you just would love to touch on?
Um, I don't know. I guess when I think about your audience and who's listening, I think you attract people who are excited about growing a business. They're perhaps like young and hungry, right? Like they're in the
Mm.
beginning stages of their business, or maybe like not the very, very beginning, but they've tried a few things and now they're seeking additional support. Would you say that's accurate?
Oh yeah, I'd say the people that are listening to this are within that first or second year of business, and they're still trying to figure out the foundational pieces. Mhm.
Yeah. And so when I think about that community, because that's if we're relating this back to community, that's
Yeah.
yours. I guess what I would say to those people is that like just like Rome wasn't built in a day, you can't build this huge community overnight. You have to do it one relationship at a time. And somebody asked, actually, in the CPSM Facebook group the other day, somebody asked, she's brand new. She just got certified. She's been supporting a few families pro bono, but hasn't taken any paid clients yet. And she was asking if it would be appropriate for her to reach out to her own, I think it was like her child's pediatric dentist, and then a next door neighbor who was also either in the dental field or pediatric medicine. I'm not exactly sure what the two circumstances were, but it was like two people she knew personally. And she was nervous, like, is it appropriate to reach out to them for the sake of networking and connecting and passing referrals back and forth when she was brand new and she didn't have any clients yet? And her husband told her that she shouldn't, because if she doesn't support those families well, then like that could ruin the relationship.
Oh
And
no,
my
that makes me so
my
sad.
perspective, I agree. My perspective on that was entirely opposite. It's like, no, no, no. This is your community. This is your next door neighbor. This is your child's dentist.
Mhm.
Like, absolutely have a conversation with them. Absolutely build that relationship, build that community, and absolutely let them send you referrals. And you're not going to botch it because I've trained you well, and because you have a community inside of CPSM. We're all going to help you. We're not going to let you crash and burn, right? So the value of creating your own community from the very beginning, it can feel very, very hard when you're just like laying the foundation. You have to feel like you have the people around you to get out and do the thing, you know? And so that's what I wanted to articulate to her, is that absolutely, like, these are your people that are going to become your referral sources. And absolutely, we are your people that are going to lift you up and support you as you navigate these first steps.
Ah. Can we talk about like whispering this to you? Can we talk about this husband thing for a second? I don't know. I just actually had a sales call earlier and she was like, I don't know if my husband's gonna go for this. And I was like, I'm sorry, is your husband in business with us? Like, because I didn't think that he like, does he need to be on this call? Because I didn't really, was he in business with you? And it was one of those conversations that we had to have. I was like, listen, is your husband an entrepreneur? Does he get it? No, he's very much into I go to a 9 to 5 job. I have a very secure, in air quotes, secure business. I was like, then he's not going to understand you wanting to do this, and we have to sometimes have those conversations of like, they just might not get it. And that's why having that community, I think, is really helpful. I don't know. What are your thoughts on this? Like, I'm like
Well,
sitting here like gossiping over here.
I think this is a whole separate podcast episode, but I do think that husbands should be like lifting their spouses up and not holding them back. And I always like to flip it. Like, if my husband's incredibly supportive, when I wanted to do this, he was like, do it. Sounds amazing. I think you'd be great at it. Like, he didn't even flinch. But if he had, like, just let's flip the roles for a second. If my husband came to me and said, I really want to take this training, it's for business development. I think it'll really help me to get to the next level in my career. I think it'll really position me to be successful in X, Y, and Z. Would I in a million years ever say no? Of course not. That's a crazy thing. And like, we as women, I think we're constantly positioning our spouses to be successful and to take some calculated risk and to take a chance on themselves because we believe in them. And the roles should be reversed and the same both ways. And so whenever I have those, because I have those conversations too, people will say, you know, I don't know if people will literally say to me, my husband doesn't think this is going to work out for me. I'm like, well, that's really sad that he feels that way. Like, that's a bummer. I feel that's sad, you know, like, I think he should believe in you because I think you would believe in him. And she's like, you know what? You're right. I would believe in him. All right. I'm going to make sure he understands that, you know? So I think that's like a whole other conversation. But if we're relating it back to community, then like, yeah, your spouse should be the inner circle of your community. But if they're not, then all the more reason for you to have a strong community outside of that inner circle. And I do have people inside of my CPSM community who have spouses who don't believe in them. And that's why it's so much more important that I show up for them and that other CPSM grads show up for them. Because, you know, if everybody's telling you that you can't do it, then like, you're not going to believe that you can do it. You need people around you believing in you and cheering you on. And, you know, I always say, like, I welcome people with bells on. Like, I ring the bell for people to join our community because it should be a celebration and everybody should feel really jazzed about getting started on something new and exciting rather than starting the whole journey from a place of like, I don't think I'm going to be able to do this. That's a terrible way to start.
I kind of want to cry a little right now thinking that about some people's lives. And my husband's also an entrepreneur, so like, he gets it, and he's always like, "I trust you if you want to make this investment," or "Hey, if you want to pivot or do that." Like, I get, like, you know, he gets it. But I also know there's a lot of people out there that like just don't have spouses like that, and you know, that just like makes me sad that like somebody would be like, "My husband doesn't believe in me." Like, I know, I'm like, I'm not gonna cry, but it's like, I want to cry.
It's
like,
it's
so
more
sad.
common. It's more common than it should be. And it's sort of a problem because I think we women don't do that back. You know, like, we're supportive and we encourage our spouses to reach for the stars and take chances and do big things. And that energy should be going back and forth both ways, if you ask me.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that perspective. I love it. And I hope more women have your community or have a community like yours where they can really see their full potential here, you know, and really see themselves in some of these other maybe more seasoned sleep consultants and see that there's so many possibilities. Like these businesses that we create are really, it's limitless of how much money you can really make, but your belief in yourself has a lot to do with you going, getting the first few clients or no clients at all, you know? So it's really important to have the people in your community that's chirping in your ear about how amazing you are and how much potential that this could really, it can change your whole life. So, and
for
fast
sure. And,
too, you know?
And, you know, there's a lot of room for, negative thought when you're growing a business. Like, there's so much space for that in your brain if you let it be there. And I think if I think about my community, my CPSM community, people who are going through my program or who have taken my program, the people who are active in the Facebook group are really leaning on the community to make sure they stay in the right frame of mind. And I think that that's smart. That's why we are there. That's why we're there, is to help them at both logistically and emotionally, and getting the support from wherever it feels best, whether it's your spouse, whether it's a Facebook group, whether it's a coach, it doesn't matter. But, you know, it's funny, like we as sleep consultants, we are trying to articulate the value of support, right? Like that's literally what we're selling is support. And then sleep consultants who sometimes struggle with getting their businesses off the ground struggle with the idea that they might benefit from added support. And, whenever anybody's talking to me about like, should I hire a business coach? I always say to them, like, what about the families who are like, should I hire a sleep consultant? The answer to that is yes, right? Like if they're struggling with sleep, they should get whatever support they can afford that feels best for them. And if you're struggling in business, you should get whatever support that you can afford that feels best for you. It's the same thing. And like, if we're going to ask our clients to pay and be held accountable for a high level of both information and support, then we should be willing to do that for ourselves as business people. And I've invested, people think that because I have a successful business that I just always know what to do and I've always done it on my own. And that is not true. Like I have joined masterminds, I've hired business strategists, I have joined Facebook communities that are just like entrepreneurial. I've joined networking groups. I've gone to conferences. Like I do all sorts of things to surround myself with community so that I can better myself in my business. And, sleep consultants, parent coaches, health coaches, whatever, like we all should be doing that to support ourselves so that we can better support our clients.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Jayne. I love all of your wisdom. I love your energy. I just appreciate you so much and everything that you've built. And, the moms, like, I don't know how many moms you've helped over the last, I don't know how many years you've been in this, 5+ years.
Yeah, longer. I think since I think we're on like year 6 or 7. And I don't know how many moms I've supported because after my first or second year, I stopped counting. I did at first I was counting. I was like, I hit 300 or I hit whatever. And then I was like, I don't know anymore. So I can't answer, but
just think of the ripple effect you've created in the world, and that's not something that, I don't know. I just want you to know that, there are a lot of moms out there who really have benefited from taking your program and being inside your community, and they've helped maybe hundreds as well. And just what a beautiful gift I think that you've given a lot of women. So thank you. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Where do you want people to hang out with you?
Good question. I feel like a lot of people who listen to your show are maybe already sleep consultants. So I guess I would direct them to listen to my podcast, which is not really a community, but it's just sort of continuing education and inspiration. It's called Becoming a Sleep Consultant, and it's on all the apps wherever you listen. You can check it out.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on, and I'll have you on probably every year because I just love hearing your voice, and I love that you also have so much business wisdom to share. And thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening to the Ambitious Coach podcast today. A couple favors before you go. If you found this episode helpful, please take a screenshot and share it on Instagram. Most importantly, don't forget to tag me at Allison Henderson _coach. That's ALLISON Henderson_coach. And lastly, please take a minute to rate this episode and leave a raving review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you tune in to listen. Okay, ambition is great, but it's time to get to work. Take action and commit to being 1% better every day. Once again, thank you for tuning in, and I will see you again next week.